They said she wasn't born like everyone else. No cries were heard the day she came into the world, only silence followed by thunder that cracked a clear sky. Her mother, who never spoke again, died with her eyes open. Her father vanished a week later, and the midwife who delivered her refused to touch another newborn for the rest of her life. Her name was Zala. Raised in isolation, she grew under the guardianship of an old priestess who claimed the child had been touched by forces older than the gods. The villagers whispered of omens, goats that refused to graze near her home, crops that withered when she passed, and the strange rhythmic hums she made when alone. Zala didn't speak until she was 10, and when she did, it was in a tongue no one recognized. The men in the village avoided her, not just because of the whispers, but because of what happened to those who got too close. The baker's son went blind after peeking through her window. A warrior who tried to touch her fell ill and aged 10 years in a week. One man simply vanished, his footprints ending at her doorstep. Still, there were some who couldn't resist. The way she walked, the curve of her hips, the way her eyes never blinked. Desire often overpowered fear, and one by one, they all tried, and all of them failed. Not because she rejected them, but because of what they found when they got close enough. Not a weapon, not a curse carved in symbols, not a monster, but something they couldn't explain. Something alive, something waiting. The first to speak of it and survive was a traveler, young, cocky, and foolish enough to think legends were just stories villagers told to stay entertained. He met Zala at the edge of the forest, where she sat alone, feet dipped in a stream, humming her strange tune. She didn't flinch when he approached. She didn't move when he sat beside her. He told her she was beautiful. She said nothing. He reached for her hand. She let him. But the moment his fingers touched her skin, his smile collapsed. He staggered back as if struck by lightning. His face drained of color, his hands trembled uncontrollably, and when he finally managed to speak, his voice was hoarse, trembling. There's something between her legs. It's not human. The villagers didn't believe him at first, but the way he shook, the way he couldn't sleep after, the way he left the village that same night and never returned, that made them wonder. Some said he'd gone mad. Others whispered that he'd seen the spirit that guards the gate to the underworld. Zala remained untouched after that for a long time. But curiosity is a stubborn fire. Another man came, then another, and another. None of them were the same after. Some lost their minds, some lost their ability to speak, and some simply disappeared. Each had tried to uncover what lay hidden. Each had learned the same lesson. There are some doors you should never open. Despite the warnings, despite the disappearances, the legend of Zala only grew. She became a forbidden obsession, especially for men from neighboring villages. They would come, whispering to each other like excited schoolboys, convinced they could be the one to break the spell, to uncover her secret, to survive her touch. They brought gifts, charms, even priests to bless their steps. None returned the same. One wept endlessly. One tore out his own tongue. One carved symbols into his chest, then ran into the forest, never to be seen again. Zala never moved. She remained at the edge of the village, silent and still. Her expression never changed. Her beauty never faded. But something about her watched, as if she didn't have to move to pull people toward her, as if whatever lay between her legs had a will of its own. The old priestess, before she died, gave one final warning to the elders. She is the gate, not the key. What lies beneath is not hers to control. It chooses. And so the villagers stopped trying. They left food at her door. They avoided eye contact. They no longer spoke her name, not out of hate, but fear, reverence. But there's always one fool who thinks he's different. His name was Bayo, and he wasn't afraid. He watched her from afar for weeks. He studied the stories. He spoke to the madmen who had survived. And still, he believed he could handle it. He believed he could win. Are you ready to see what Bayo discovers when he crosses the line? Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what happens next in this haunting tale. The next part will change how you see everything. Bayo wasn't like the others. He didn't approach Zala with arrogance or lust. He came with patience, calculation. He observed her habits, the times she came to the river, how long she lingered beneath the baobab tree, the rhythm of her silence. While others were drawn to her mystery like moths to flame, Bayo studied her like a riddle that begged to be solved. And then, one afternoon, as the clouds hung low and heavy, he made his move. He didn't speak. He didn't reach for her. He simply sat across from her by the water's edge. The wind barely stirred. Birds fell silent. Zala looked at him for the first time, truly looked. Her eyes locked onto his, and something unspoken passed between them. She didn't tell him to leave. She didn't tell him to stay. Hours passed. They said nothing. Then Zala rose. She turned her back to him and walked toward the forest. Slowly, deliberately, no words, no gesture. Bayo followed. The villagers watched from behind curtains, hearts pounding. No one had dared follow her into the forest before. No one had been invited. But Bayo disappeared beneath the trees like a man stepping off a cliff, and the forest swallowed him whole. For 3 days, there was nothing, no sound, no trace, until he returned, barefoot, shirtless, eyes wide, too wide, a strange symbol carved into his chest, not with a knife, with something older, something not meant for human skin. He said nothing, didn't scream, didn't cry. He simply whispered, "I saw it." And then, as calmly as someone crossing a street, he plucked out both his eyes with his own hands. The screams came later, not from Bayo, but from those who watched. The healer fainted. The elder wept. Even the birds abandoned the trees above him, as if the sky itself didn't want to witness what had just happened. Blood streamed down Bayo's face, but he didn't tremble, didn't falter. He sat in silence, his empty eye sockets turned toward the earth, whispering the same words under his breath. She showed me. She let me see. I wasn't supposed to, but she let me. They tried to bandage him, tried to feed him, tried to speak to him. Nothing worked. He never screamed once. But at night, the villagers heard him laughing, not with joy, but with something hollow, a laughter that didn't belong in the world of the living, a sound that made children cry in their sleep and dogs refused to go near his hut. When the elders demanded answers, he gave them just one. She's not hiding anything. What's between her legs isn't hers. That was all. And no one asked again, because from that night on, things began to change. The crops wilted faster. The rivers ran slower. Women miscarried. Men forgot their own names. The wind carried whispers, even when the trees stood still. Zala was never seen again, but her presence lingered. And so did the thing she carried. It wasn't her curse anymore. It was the villages, and whatever lived between her legs had found a new home. Years passed, but no one ever dared rebuild near the river. The ground where Bio returned went untouched, not because they honored his pain, but because strange things happened there. Women who passed by claimed to feel warmth spread through their bodies without cause. Men said their dreams were invaded by a figure they couldn't see, whispering in a voice that didn't sound like a voice at all. Some swore they saw Zala in the trees just for a second before the shadows swallowed her. Others believed she never left, that she simply changed form, became something less human, more elemental, more eternal. And Bio? He stopped speaking altogether. Some said he no longer needed words. Others believed he wasn't Bio anymore, that whatever he saw between her legs didn't just blind him, it marked him, claimed him, made him part of whatever she was guarding, whatever she was. The elders held ceremonies, prayers, cleansings, but the land didn't heal, and the story didn't fade. It grew, spread to neighboring villages, traveled beyond the rivers, changed form with every telling. But one truth always remained the same. She didn't curse them. They cursed themselves by trying to see what was never meant to be seen. If you were in Bio's place, would you still follow her into the forest, knowing no man has ever returned the same? Let me know in the comments what choice you'd make and why. If this tale shook you, wait until you hear the next one. He touched her once and went blind forever. Watch now and step deeper into the shadows of African folklore.